We often think of growth as something we have to, force, something we have to actively do. But what if true transformation isn't about pushing harder? What if, at a certain point in your journey, the path shifts from what you're doing to who you are becoming? It seems like we're all taught that when we hit a wall, the only solution is more effort, right? More hustle. But let's just sit with this for a second. What if the answer isn't to push harder? What if the real way forward requires something else entirely? And this is the core idea we're diving into. The thought that maybe, just maybe, progress isn't about forcing your way through, that life is actually asking for a softening, an opening, just a fundamental willingness to be shaped by what's happening.
So, how does a shift like this even begin? Well, it's usually not some big, dramatic event. It's more like a quiet invitation, a little whisper of awareness that maybe, just maybe, it's time to loosen your grip. So let's break down what that invitation actually looks like. This isn't about giving up. It's about the art of allowing. First, you just allow change, and you allow the uncertainty that, always comes with it. Then you allow the old parts of yourself, your old habits, your old identities, to loosen their grip. And when you do that, you create the space for that final step. You allow yourself to be genuinely reshaped. This brings us to a really crucial word: surrender. Now, we're usually taught to see surrender as weakness or defeat, right? But in this context, it's the absolute opposite. It's the kind of surrender that comes from maturity, a powerful choice that's rooted in a deep, grounded trust in the process itself, even when you have no idea where it's going. And this process of surrender, it leads you into this unique and, sometimes pretty uncomfortable phase. It's a phase of dissolving. That space in between who you once were and who you're now becoming. Have you ever felt this? That moment when habits that used to define you just start to feel looser? Or when the roles you play, at work, in your family, suddenly feel like a costume you've totally outgrown? That's not a sign that you're lost. It's a sign that you're growing beyond your old container. But here's the thing about the uncertainty in this phase. It isn't just total confusion. It actually contains this deep, intuitive knowing. You might not have a map for who you're becoming, but you have a crystal clear feeling of who you're not anymore. And that feeling, that becomes your guide. In a world that is completely obsessed with speed, we really have to remember this. Deep transformation doesn't rush. It unfolds. It has its own timeline. And our only job isn't to force it or speed it up, but simply to stay present for the process. Okay, so this brings us to a major idea that we really need to challenge: the myth of force. This belief that all personal growth has to be a fight, a project that we have to manage and control every single step of the way. And here you can see two completely different ways to approach growth. On one side, you've got the paradigm of force, wrestling with things, pressuring yourself, treating growth like some project you have to accomplish. But on the other side, there's participation, allowing, cooperating, being shaped. It's this huge shift from being the manager of your growth to being a partner with it. Let's use a metaphor to make this really concrete. In this way of seeing things, just imagine for a second that you are the stone. You're stable, you're solid, you're present. And if you're the stone, then life is the river. It's this gentle but persistent force that just flows over and around you. It's not trying to destroy you, it's just moving, touching you, interacting with you. And this, right here, is the heart of it all. The process of being smoothed by the river of life, of having all your rough edges worn away. That isn't punishment. It's an act of creation. It's art. It is life revealing your truest form. So what happens when you really embrace this? When you stop fighting the river and you just allow yourself to be shaped? Well, paradoxically, this act of surrender becomes this profound new kind of strength. The outcomes of this process are just so fascinating because they're all about balance. You become softer, but somehow you're not weaker. You find this incredible clarity, but without any of the harshness. It's a strength that comes from being aligned with life, not from trying to control it. Ultimately, what comes out of all this is authenticity. And this is a very different kind of strength. It's not that brittle strength of dominance that has to constantly prove itself and defend its position. No, This is a quiet, deep power that doesn't need anyone else's approval because it comes from an internal truth. It just knows.
So if any of this is resonating with you, if you feel like you might be in one of these quiet seasons of becoming, this last part is for you. Look, our minds will always want a clear plan, a guaranteed outcome. I get it. But this process just doesn't work that way. The real invitation is to trust the unfolding itself, even when you can't see the final destination. It's about trusting that there's goodness within the process. You know, maybe the biggest barrier we face is this hidden belief that we're not allowed to change, that we somehow owe it to our past selves to stay the same. But the final message here is one of permission. You are allowed to let life change you. You are absolutely allowed to become someone new.